It has been roughly 4 months since the launch of the first GeForce RTX 50 series cards, but it is still hard to find an RTX 5090 or an RTX 5080 for the MSRP tags of $2,000 and $1,000 respectively. It's not that the GPU availability is poor, but it's actually very stable right now. Despite this, AIBs and distributors are still profiting off from additional price hikes. The rest of the lineup, which includes the 70 and 60 class cards, aren't quite there yet, except for the RTX 5060, which we do find at MSRP at multiple retailers. The situation has been under control for a few weeks now, with most retailers having a good stock of the RTX 50 series GPUs worldwide. Now, as we see gradual drops in the GPU prices weeks after weeks, NVIDIA is apparently not looking happy. It still wants you to buy its cards for much higher price tags, and that's why it is deliberately cutting the production of these GPUs. Initially, when the RTX 50 cards came to the market, the demand was quite high, and since NVIDIA already cut off the production of RTX 40 GPUs, they could only buy the RTX 50 cards. However, as the market became more stable and the GPUs started becoming more available, NVIDIA became worried and is now supposedly reducing the supply of the GPUs. Gazlog reports from Chip Help Forum that the GeForce RTX 5000 series is apparently getting a 30% decrease in production compared to June. And if you read the article, which is translated from Japanese, it states that since May 2025, the supply of RTX 5000 series has stabilized and the demand has decreased. And now when the selling prices of various models have dropped below MSRP at some places, NVIDIA is not happy with this. For context, the RTX 50 series GPUs sometimes drop down to MSRP or even below that in a few regions, but it's not regular. The average selling price of the GPUs is still much higher than their MSRPs, but NVIDIA is already panicking, seeing that its GPUs are dropping down to the MSRP tags and doesn't want gamers to get those GPUs for a fair price. That's why it has decided to cut down the production by up to 30% for this month. So basically, even before we could see the GPUs selling at their announced price tags, it is likely that in the coming weeks we may not see any improvement in the availability or the prices. It's just that NVIDIA doesn't like reducing its profits, and the situation can become quite complicated due to the fact that its board partners don't get enough profit from selling custom designs, as the GPU chip and VRAM alone can cost them 80% of the total production cost. Hence, we see AIBs producing pricier overclocked models which are slightly tweaked over the reference editions in order to make them more appealing to the audience. However, these don't really bring any noticeable performance uplifts, but can easily cost 20 to 30% higher than the MSRP of the reference editions. Now, as far as NVIDIA's profits are concerned, it is already getting them whether AIBs want to sell the custom designs for MSRP or higher, but when it deliberately cuts off a big portion of the supply, this results in a shift in supply-demand curve, keeping the prices high as the demand becomes greater than the supply. That said, our only concern are the GPU prices and whether NVIDIA decides to cut the production or increase it by several folds. As long as the GPUs aren't way above their MSRPs, it will still somehow work for gamers. Now let's take a quick look at the current GPU market and how it's going for the RTX 50 cards. If we consider the latest data from one of the major retailers like Amazon, we can see that in US alone the RTX 50 cards are selling quite well, and as per June's data, the GeForce RTX 5060 is the best selling graphics card with nearly 5,500 cards shipped in this month. Then we have the RTX 5060 Ti with total units close to 5,000, followed by the RTX 5070 Ti with 4,400 sold units. The AMD Radeon RX 9070 XT is also doing well with about 3,800 units sold, but we can see that the 5070 series cards are more popular. In fact, the RX 9070 non-XT doesn't seem to attract users much due to its unreasonable price, even though it is faster than the RTX 5070 for the same price tag. But this is likely could be a result of higher average selling price of the RX 9070. While you could get an RTX 5070 for around $600, the RX 9070 currently falls in the $650 to $700 price range. The list also shows customer behavior, and one can see that NVIDIA GPUs are still heavily favored over AMD cards. Assuming we have two direct competitors from both, and both are close to each other in price to performance ratio, users are likely going for the NVIDIA card. This can be seen from the RTX 5070 Ti sales, which is $100 to $150 more expensive than the RX 9070 XT on Amazon at the moment. We see a similar story when we check the 60 class card stats, as the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB card is selling more than its AMD counterpart despite latter being cheaper, and the difference between their sales number is quite big. One is at the second position with nearly 5,000 units shipped, the other wasn't even able to cross the 1000 units mark. In the higher end segment, unfortunately AMD doesn't have any competitor for the NVIDIA RTX 5080, which is why despite listing for $1,400 to $1,600, the RTX 5080 is selling quite well. The RTX 5090 is also doing fine, and due to the lack of competition, it easily sells for over $2,500. So in the high end segment, the price really doesn't matter, and NVIDIA does take advantage of such situations. In the budget range, we can see that the RTX 3060 still manages to outsell even the RTX 5060, despite the fact that 5060 is one of the handful of new generation cards which you can buy for their MSRP. One of the reasons for 3060's success is its VRAM capacity. The GPU was launched in both 8 and 12GB variants, and you will mostly find the 12GB one on Amazon selling for over $300. So this shows that users prefer settling with the GPU with higher VRAM capacity, even if the overall performance is noticeably slower than the GPU that has 8GB of VRAM, and this is for obvious reasons. All in all, NVIDIA still controls the GPU market, and you can see that it has captured nearly 80% of the total revenue, while AMD is 4 times below it. So even if NVIDIA decides to cut the supply by a big margin, it can continue to sell the GPUs even for higher prices than AMD. The only way for AMD to take control of this situation is by pricing the RX 9000 GPUs aggressively, but I don't believe AMD is ready to take such steps. So that wraps up today's video, and I want to know your thoughts on this whole GPU situation in the comments. If you liked the video, then hit the like button, and if you're new here, then consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one.